Good morning, and welcome to episode 4 of the Battles of Prospects introduction series. And this episode, I'll be talking about the Dusk Affinity action card deck. So, last week I've talked about the Dawn action card deck because it's the very first deck that I thought of. And it's a pretty good step up to talk about the Dusk action deck right now. So first, again, just same as last week, I wanted to talk first about sort of the history of the deck. Then I want to go past all the values, lowest to highest. So first other 1 values, 2s up to 10, and ending with the X value action card, and just telling you all about what the idea is behind it. And after that, I have a very short question that you can answer if you watched either the first or the second episode of this series and know how the game is played. So I suppose you would know because you're watching this, but if you don't, it's a good idea to watch either the first or the second episode, because there is sort of a new mechanic that we are thinking about of adding into the game, mostly to make monsters a bit more prevalent in the fights. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So stay tuned until the end of the video, because it will. I'll come back to it. So then, the very first thing, yes, I got a haircut, and I want to talk to you about the history of the Dusk Deck. I will shrink the camera. Whee! Okay, so the Dusk Deck is a deck that focuses on drawing action cards for yourself. And in the very beginning of Battles of Prospects, just as the Dawn deck was designed to give the other players action cards, they would have more lives, because action cards were your life force, basically. Now the Dusk deck was some sort of self-sufficient deck that would draw cards for themselves, so they would possibly be able to play infinitely. And thing was, it dealt more damage than the Dawn action deck, because where the Dawn action deck was very set on making the combo continue, the Dusk action deck, well, it made sure you could play cards, but it didn't make sure the combo in itself would continue, as the players around you could have empty hands as you were having 10 cards in your hand and just trying to solo the entire round. Well, you can't, because you can't play to your left or your right, because they're all in the dirt. So as progression in the game continued, and velocity and the other stats got introduced, it now seems a bit weird, maybe, if you think about it, that the Dusk deck still deals more damage than the Dawn deck, but it really isn't, because the Dawn deck is still really prevalent in continuing combos in ways that the other decks just can't. Yeah, so what you see here is the very first iteration of the Dusk deck. It's all Dusk related names, except for pretty name, because I couldn't really think of anything that goes there. It has a better name now, better than a pretty name, for sure. And you see draw an action card. That's basically the card I talked about that sort of tells you what the deck wants to do, and then here's the very flavorless deal 1, 2, 3, 4 damage that every deck has. Then I want to talk to you about all the value action cards, and I will start with the first one value, which is Receding Light. Still, art was done by Ozan, so thanks. I was still looking for another artist, by the way, so if you know anyone, the comments are there for you. This is the very flavorless action card. Also, we changed I changed the text from place to your left, place to your right to arrows, just to make it more, not necessarily, yeah, just make it easier maybe. So if you have feedback on that, also, like, just write paragraphs. It goes to the right, deals 2 damage. It's really not that interesting because it's a 1 value action card, so it doesn't really have to be. Same goes for the Wishing Star. It is the action card that says like, yo, you are the Dusk action deck, so you want to draw cards. And why do you want to draw cards? Magnetic Moon doesn't really say it yet. No. Magnetic Moon is sort of a situational action card that I wanted to have in there. So it deals 3 damage, and you draw an action card and you shovel it back in if it wasn't Dusk or Shadow. It's really, I wanted an effect that wasn't just deal damage and draw, because then you just have the other 2 action cards combined, and you can't really have a draw multiple on a 2 value action card, because that's just weird in the power curve. So I came up with a situational draw, and at first this was draw an action card, shuffle it back in if it wasn't Shadow, but that's just weird because, like, for the first few floors the chance of you drawing a Shadow action card is so low. So now it became Dusk or Shadow, and that makes it a very good card in the early game as well as throughout the game, because you can just draw action cards all the time basically with it. And like, if you build your deck correctly, not necessarily, it's not bad to build your action deck with other action cards, but this is a way that would work better if you just only put Dusk and Shadow action cards in your deck, basically. And the Dusk deck can put Shadow cards in their deck pretty easily because they draw so many cards, so it's very easy for them to also discard a lot of cards. Well, they have the resource in their hand to manage. Then onto the 3 value, which is Night Vision. Night Vision is discard 1 action card, draw a number of action cards equal to its value. So that's the action card that mostly it's mostly good in the late game, and it is mostly good for the other affinities as well. So as it is a 3 value action card, there are 3 copies of this in the entire deck, and the Dusk player will have 1 of them in their starting deck. Oh, that's also good to come back on. The very action cards you start with are Receding Light, 3 of them, Wishing Star, 3 Wishing Stars, 2 Magnetic Moons, and 1 Night Vision, and 1 Dark Sky. Those are the action cards you start with. So you'll have 1 3 value in your hand, which means there will be more for other players to choose from. And if, let's say, the Shadow player manages to get one of those cards in their hand, a Night Vision, they're in pretty good shape, because that's like every time they can play this card, they can set themselves up for bigger combos in which they discard more action cards to deal more damage, which will sound way more clear when I've shown you the Shadow deck in an episode or two. So on to the fourth value. This is Dark Sky, and it's a deal 4 damage, draw an action card, then deal 2 damage for every action card you've drawn this round. And that's basically the bread and butter of the Dusk deck, because you draw so many cards, and you also draw cards through this card, because during playtesting, many times in later game combats, players would sort of start with this card and then deal 4 damage, period. And now it's a guaranteed 6 damage, draw 1. That's pretty good. And if you manage to play this somewhere later on in the round, it ramps up pretty quickly. And then we'll have to go on to the first action card that you don't start with. It's not in your starting deck, and it's the first action card that can upgrade, and it's the 5 value Sunset Sightings. This is a deal 5 damage, becomes 8 damage, and collect 1 action card from every other player. If you play those action cards as combat, give them back into their hand. This is strong, very strong. So collect here means other players can choose an action card from their hand and give them into your hand. Most collect keywords have some sort of thing where the other player decides what card to give you. This card can be very very pleasant to play because well, you can just sort of collect action cards for yourself into your hand. So you can collect a Dawn action card and just sort of, what's it called? Not really. Yes, sort of just make the rest of the game run that more smoothly, because maybe the Shadow player doesn't really have any access to Dawn action cards from the people beside them, or they don't have any Dusk action cards themselves. So if you as the Dusk player can reach the Shadow player more easily, you can get a Dawn action card for yourself, play it towards the Shadow player, and then give it back to the Dawn player into their hand. Yeah, that's strong. And other action cards with very strong effects can sort of be double tapped this way. So maybe if someone plays the Bard player, plays the Bard character, the Bard character can play action cards from the same value as the one played before them. So let's say for some reason you can collect an 8 value action card with this, and then next round, on your next turn you play it, and it goes to the Bard, and you give the action card to the Bard, and they can play it instantly as well. That's something you can do with Sunset Sightings. So, and it becomes 8 damage, so just pretty solid overall. Onto the 6 is Lone Glowcloud. That's a reference to some sort of podcast that I listened a few episodes of because it was recommended to me. And it was pretty weird. There was this one cloud, and that one cloud sort of controlled an entire city or area, or I don't know. It was weird. People kept disappearing, and there were aliens, and I don't even know. But here it looks pretty happy. So it's a deal 8 damage, becomes 10 damage. Search your deck for 1 or 2 action cards with at least 8, becomes 6 value, and put them in your hand. Wait, what do I... Oh, sorry. I hope this helps. And put them in your hand. So in this case, it's literally just put an action card that you want from your deck into your hand in the late game. And on floor 6, 7, it won't do a lot because you won't have an 8 value action card in your deck. So this really is an action card that excels in the late game. Yeah, it's really just there to so you can set up your hand to play more easily in the next turn, and then more easily than other regular Dusk action cards would have you play. Then you have to shuffle your deck, because otherwise you can just count the cards in your deck, and that's not really what I'm going for. Yeah, here, look at your deck, then draw the topmost action card that meets the requirements. So it's literally just, you look, grab your 8 or higher, or the first 6 or higher that you see, and then you shuffle. And most of the time that will get you in a very nice spot to combo for the rest of the combat, or for the rest of the round at least. Early Sleep is the 7 value action card, and it's a deal 12 damage, which is a lot of damage. I know. Wait, how much was 8 to 10, 12 to 15? Gee, that's so much more. But you'll get it later. So draw an action card and play it, no matter its affinity or value. So it's a play the top card of your deck, deal 12 damage, becomes 15, and play the top card of your deck. That can be good for the combo, for the round, to keep it going. Maybe you play a 1 or 2 action card after it, so that other players can combo on it more easily. But it's also possible that you just on accident play your 10 value from the top of your deck and you end the turn altogether, which could be a shame if it happens at unfortunate timings, and the turn continues from the other action card you play. So this action card doesn't have a set direction. You can do cool things with it. There is an Eclipse action card that lets you rearrange your deck. So, say in case you have that action card in your hand and this one, you can literally just arrange your deck so that the top action card is very favorable for you, and then play from there. It could be a hard reset on the round or on the combo. That brings us to the 8th value action card, which is Glimmering Shade. It's a draw 4, becomes 5 action cards, and deal damage equal to their combined value. This is a hand filler. It just fills your hand up so much. It's good for every starting affinity, basically. You'll get it really late. This is at floor 7 at first, or earliest, and you're in a really good spot if you have this, and if you can play it, because it deals, like, let's say the sort of what's it called, median value in your deck is 3. Then you draw 4 action cards, and you draw 4 times 3 is 12 damage, and now you have 4 action cards extra in your hand. That's really, really nice. And then it plays to the right. So, yeah, this is just a really strong action card that will help you for the rest of combat, most likely, because you'll have so much more cards in your hand, and there is the possibility to deal so much damage with this. That brings us to the 9th value action card, also really great art, and it's Twilight's Embrace. And Twilight's Embrace is a deal 14 damage, becomes 18 damage, collect 1 played action card from every affinity. So this means that you'll have to try at least to collect 1 Dawn, 1 Dusk, 1 Shadow, and 1 Light action card. And then you add the combined value to the next damage you deal. Oh boy. So let's use the example from the previous action card and say every action card you collect has a 3 value. Then this is a 26 becomes 30 damage action card. That's pretty nice. But because it's a 9 value action card, it's pretty hard to combo on, so there is a good chance it will end the turn. Or will end the round, I mean. Also, the keyword collect here also means that the other player chooses one of their played eligible action cards and gives them into your hand. So you'll have to be in some good grace with them. So then off to arguably the strongest action card in this deck, as it's supposed to be, as it's the 10th value, is Nightfall. Nightfall is replace any number of action cards from your hand with action cards drawn from your deck. Deal your hand's total value as damage. Get rid of all of your 1 values. Let's hope you get some higher values into your hand and just wreck the entire board. This can be an insta-kill card. It's really, really strong. Yeah, so yeah, it's literally just that if you can't finish off a monster with this, you done goofed, because you should have a lot of action cards in your hand. So it could be because you have only 1 chance to get the 10 value action card in a game. So it could be that the shadow player draws Nightfall, and in that case there is a good chance they won't deal as much damage with it, and that would be a shame. But if the right player draws this card, it can be an insta-kill. And I mean, it's a 10 value, so it's supposed to be. Then on to Dinner, which is the X value action card. As mentioned in the Dawn video, all the X's take the value of the action card played before it. So if this is played on a 6, it's a 6 value, deal 6 damage, draw 6 action cards. It's pretty good for anyone to have, really. There is only 1 of these, and it is a card you can guarantee play, because it just takes the value of the action card played before it. And yeah, that's why it doesn't really deal that much damage, and that's fine. Yeah, it doesn't really have anything more to it. It's just a simple deal 6 damage, draw 6 cards. So that's all I had for you for the Dusk action deck, but as I told you at the start of the video, there was something else I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to do that now. Here. This was an idea to make monsters more prevalent, and it's basically to have a maximum of 4 actions per player per round. During playtests, most players wouldn't play 4 or more action cards in a turn or in a round before some player couldn't play. And it is possible that once players get better at the game, they would be able to play 6 or 7 action cards in a turn, and then this would be a big nerf to them, basically. But this is a way in which basically monsters would attack more often, and this is a plan that came to mind because there was some feedback that monsters in Palace of Prospects would mostly be a stat block, a wall of stats that didn't really do anything unless you did something wrong, basically. And now, sort of in a thematic way, because like the players are wielding the power of gods, and it might be that they have to take a deep breath after casting 4 godlike spells. Yeah, I would love to have your opinion on this, because I don't know whether or not this would be a good addition to the game, basically. So if anyone could give me more insight on their opinion of what this does, or maybe some other possible mechanic that could be used as a substitution of this, or maybe that it wouldn't be necessary, I don't know. This is basically meant to make it a lot more interesting. But that's all for me for today. I thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, type lamp. Type lamp if you made it this far. Also, even if you didn't make it this far, please like, I hope. I hope you just skipped this part and like either way, even though you don't know that I said this. If you're first, comment first. If you want to see more, you know what to do. Next time I'll be back with the Light deck. All light action cards, and maybe I can give you more information on feedback I got on the playmat idea. So, see you next time. Have a nice day.